Tonight, Robin Gill.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with a major deal to help give Canada its own supply of critical PPE. The federal and Ontario governments have secured an agreement with manufacturing giant 3M to produce N95 masks at a facility in Brockville, Ontario. Ottawa and Ontario will each receive 25 million masks per year over 5 years for healthcare and other essential workers. Ontario Premier Doug Ford and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau were both on hand for the announcement. But as our chief political correspondent David Akin is here to tell us, Trudeau couldn't escape more questions about his decision to shut down Parliament. David.
Well, Robin, 3M is going to get a combined $47 million from the governments of Canada and Ontario. 3M will use that money to expand this plant, buy some new equipment, and ramp up manufacture of N95 masks. The N95 mask is a crucial piece of personal protective equipment for frontline healthcare workers and caregivers. But when the pandemic first hit earlier this year, Canada and the provinces were forced to scramble to find enough of them.
We were left in a terrible, terrible situation. And I can tell you, worrying about where we would get the next PPE shipment, that's what kept me up at night.
At one point, Ontario was down to less than a week's supply, and U.S. President Donald Trump was threatening to ban exports from 3M's plant in Minnesota to customers in Canada. Ever since, the two levels of government have been working to secure a domestic supply of PPE like the N95 mask.
Today, I know that Ontario will never have to depend on another country for the N95 mask we need to protect our nurses and doctors, our frontline heroes.
But in a week that saw the Prime Minister appoint a new finance minister after the previous one resigned, then suspend Parliament, then roll out a $37 billion overhaul of Canada's social safety net, well, the questions he took here were about his political judgment.
The throne speech we put forward 8 months ago is not aligned with the reality people are facing today. There was no mention of COVID-19. That's why prorogation is a logical and reasonable step.
But Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet tweeted this about Trudeau's parliamentary tactics, saying, "I warn the Prime Minister against the temptation to hold workers and businesses hostage to force the adoption of the speech from the throne." Trudeau shrugged off the criticism.
If the other parties disagree with extending the CERB or getting people on EI, they need to say that.
Now, as for that 3M deal, it involves 50 million masks a year coming out of this plant. Half will go to Ontario, half will go to the federal government to be distributed around the country. Production begins in January. Robin.
David Akin in Brockville, Ontario. Thanks, David. There is a grim reminder tonight that it's not just the elderly at risk in this pandemic. Quebec has reported its youngest victim of COVID-19. A friend has identified him as 19-year-old Don Beni Kumbangu Sapu.
Quand je suis arrivé au Canada,
This is Sapu 4 years ago in a City of Montreal video speaking about his birthplace, the Democratic Republic of Congo. According to an online fundraiser set up to help cover funeral costs, he died of complications from the virus on August 16th. His father told other media he had no underlying health conditions. Deaths from COVID-19 are extremely rare in young people, but there's a growing number of younger Canadians contracting the virus. According to the Public Health Agency of Canada, since early July, Canadians under the age of 39 have accounted for the highest proportion of new cases. In the last week, they accounted for 63% of all new cases.